Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Madcapper, and this is another video on Raid Shadow Legends, and another in our series of I Built Them So You Don't Have To. This also marks a special occasion of being the first rare champion featured in this series, so without further ado, let's go take a look at Dagger. Dagger is a Void Affinity rare attack-based champion of the Bannerlord faction. Take a look at her kit here. It starts with a very low 12, 720 HP, though that's not uncommon for rare champions. Attack 1387, pretty good. Defense 793, a little bit low. Speed 101, crit rate 1557, crit damage, and 30 resist. All pretty typical numbers for a rare champion. What really matters, of course, is the multipliers. But let's take a look here. The aura ally attack and faction crisps by 20%. If you're dealing, if you don't feel like you're dealing enough damage in the faction wars, could be a champion for you. Sword break on her A3 attacks one enemy, has a 50% chance of placing a 25% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns, and has a 50% chance of placing a 50% decrease attack if the target is under decreased defense debuff. So that means one of the first things we're going to look at is on auto, does she properly use her A2 first, which would then allow her to activate her A3 properly. Something that we're going to find out in a little bit here. Speaking of her A2, by the way, this is a 75% and 3-turn cooldown, fully booked. Her A2 is Precision Sabotage. Attacks all enemies, has a 50% chance of placing a 60% decrease defense debuff for 2 turns, and that's bookable to 75% and 3-turn cooldown. And then finally, you have Double Daggers. Attacks one enemy 2 times. Each critical hit decreases the target's turn meter by 4%. By the way, for those of you who are regulars of the channel, you may notice a slight weird order. I actually am refilming my Dagger footage, and I put the Fight Night video out first, and that's simply because I was waiting for assets that I wasn't getting yet from Plarium to do the thumbnails. So I didn't need any assets for the Fight Night video, so I put it out first, and now we're doing Dagger. I actually have my original footage of Dagger. Since that time, I've actually gotten a little bit better gear, so we've kind of balanced her out a little bit, and I purposely went to look for some good immunity gear, or sorry, immortal gear, to give her a little bit of a HP boost because she does have such a low start. She's still very frail, so that is one thing. This is the build I'm going to use with her, but if you're a little bit earlier game, free to play, you don't have quite the gear, you may want to consider reducing attack and increasing her HP and or defense by using a defense or an HP. I would say probably, gosh, you could almost get away with a flat, and I rarely say this, but you could almost get away with a flat stat HP, but certainly you want to at least have some survivability if you're going through multiple rounds. That said, we're going to try her in the her more apropos damage build. So here's her total stats that we've got here: 25, 533 on the HP, 4035 attack defense at 1658, 209 speed, 103 crit rate, 266 crit damage, 254 accuracy, of course fully booked. We use some perception gear, some crit damage gear just to give her some extra damage. Again, I can't stress this enough. If you are earlier game, this is not the build for you. You're going to want to build her out kind of like you would with the Warmaiden. The Warmaiden and Dagger, as my last video or my Fight Night video had shown, that they are probably the same champion. They're 2 different Ps. I think Dagger hits harder. Warmaiden's probably a little bit more durable. At the end of the day, they're both really good champions, and survivability in the early game is more important. So I've got an attack ring. You're going to want to put an HP ring on her. I think the HP ring would be the most critical piece, and probably crit damage early on. You're going to want to go HP there because her HP is such a low starting stat. Flat stats comparatively are a bigger chunk of the puzzle, right? If you have HP of 20k and you add 256 or 200 damage of it, that's a smaller percentage than if you've got an HP of 12,000 and you're adding that same 200 and whatever it is. I think it's 265 for those. As far as masteries on Dagger, and I'll just make myself disappear so you can see them, but I because I was doing some clan boss testing with her, which by the way, no, I mean she'll work in clan boss the same as any defense down in a counter attack, but I was doing it for the Fight Night video. As you can see, so we took her down to War Master, and I actually took her down the defense tree, and I like the idea of retaliation on her. Obviously, if you have a less mature Great Hall, then you're going to need to take her down support. I would think that the common build would take her zigzag down support like you normally do and go to this right here, because that gives you that extra 5% to land her hers, and that her A2 and A3. So that's actually this is huge, and I think that if you're building her out, this is what you want. You want sniper. But because I was trying out in Clan Boss, I wanted to go this way. And same with Master Hexer. Again, the extension on that is always a good thing in dungeons and anywhere in the game. So consider that. Other than that, I just went down some offense piece, figuring that she's pretty squishy, so this is going to be useful. And then some heal, right, is always good, and just damage all the way down. You could probably take her down Helm Smasher if you wanted to. She's got one AoE and a 2-hit A1, so you could argue for Helm Smasher on her. I would actually probably take her down Flawless Execution, give her more crit damage and consistency, and that way maybe you can back off some of those stats to get her a little bit more survivability, but those are your choices. So it is always a good and prudent test to bring in your champions into the campaign. For one, you might find out you had a farmer that you never realized you had. Also, it's very good to take them from, depending on the champion, from around level 50 to 60 solo, because then you're actually getting 100% of the XP from the run into the champion you're leveling up. It is the most efficient way to level up your champions. I always suggest when you get them to 6-star, stop farming them, like stop using them as farm for your campaign farmer, and then start using them in the Minotaur. Once you're finished with the Minotaur, she'll probably be around level 42. You might have to bring her into something like, I usually use Spider, so I'll do a slow farm with Spider or Dragon, but you can definitely, if you don't have those type of slow farm teams, you can bring them into the campaign with your campaign farmer, get her to around 50. I believe I brought her in here at 52. That was just, I don't know why that number was the number, but we'll see what she can do here. Pretty simple. She has a decent kit actually for farming, and she hits relatively hard. So her A2 hits very well. Then she switches to her A3, A1, and then she's going to cycle back. So she's going to take a little bit of a hit here, but typically if you have reasonable gear, that's not going to be an issue. Also, 40k, we're well over the number we need to kill these champions. So keep that in mind as well. You could, if you're farming her up again, make her a little bit tankier if you need to. That's more than enough. I think those champions usually have between 20 and 30,000 health. So hitting them for 50 to 70 is overkill and not really needed. But as you can see, 22 seconds. Pretty easy run. She's not going to be your campaign farmer. I think your starting champion, because your starter has more AoE, typically is going to do a little bit better than this as their fastest time, but you can see that she's able to do this quite efficiently, and yeah, it's going to give you a chance to use that XP to its fullest potential to level her up. All right, so here is, I would argue, a pretty free-to-play friendly team. You've got 3 rares. Yes, I do have Royal Guard, but you need some kind of damage in there. You need some kind of, for any type of run. Maybe you've got Rosin in that slot and Tyrell, those sort of champions. But you're going to have, hopefully, an epic of some sort. And this is just an idea to kind of get you through there. Obviously, because this isn't a speed team, I'm going to bring in Gorgrab just for the lift. We need that the possibility of a revival, because those Hordens are going to murder somebody here at some point. It just is what it is. But say she's doing pretty good. One thing I noticed, and I noticed this in doing the fight night as well, is that the consistency of putting up defense down is a lot less important, strangely enough, in these runs. If you're speed running, yes, it's very important. But in the case of here, like if she lands 4 like she did in the first round, or 5 in the second round, she's still putting up those, and it's not really hurting the overall run. It will slow the speed down slightly, but I don't think that's as important as it is to have consistency. And that's one of the big things with her versus Warmaiden. She hits harder than Warmaiden. So what's more important to you, hitting harder, which usually hitting harder means killing means more consistency, or is it more important that you have that 100% chance to land that defense down? And I would argue for dungeon runs, the more damage is probably the better of the options. As you can see here, not having too much problems. She did die in that second round. That's why you bring in a Gorgrab to help you out. and this is going to be what, an easy 140, 130 run, with a starter and a couple of champions. And as you can see, did pretty good damage too, like right around Elaine's damage, slightly less. And then you had a couple supports to help them out. Obviously the Royal Guard with the enemy max HP. A2 is going to be the big hitter, but definitely a usable champion. And all right, so we're injecting a little bit of an edit into this. Originally I had done Dragon and Ice Golem instead of Fire Knight, and I thought, you know what, that's not fair. Everyone wants to know what Dagger's going to do in Fire Knight. That's where she's got that turn meter, which isn't a huge thing, but it could be a difference maker. Originally, I didn't do it because I didn't feel like I had a team that could actually get through. Fire Knight waves are the hardest of the dungeons because they're force affinity, and if you're trying to keep a free-to-play account going, you probably got a lot of magic champions, and magic champions are weak affinity, which makes it really hard to get through those dungeons. Or you're using a legendary champion, like I use Ethos to wave clear, and it's relevant, but not showing a void legendary wouldn't really help you on how good is Dagger. So we put this team together, and I've already done videos on Alika and Mistress of Hymns, and you'll see where I think this is actually a pretty strong team. We've got some decent damage here. Mistress of Hymns is really, honestly, really underrated. I made the video on her, and I don't know if I stressed it enough. For progression, she's a very, very strong champion. She's got constant heals. She has the ability to revive. She's the Spirit Affinity, which is so hard to find. Granted, not going to be your main damage dealer, but even on weak affinity, like in the Dragon dungeon, it's not really a big deal because you're not there. She's there for survivability, not damage. She can do damage, but if she weak hits, it's not the end of the world. She's there to revive your champions, and we've got some squishy champions here. She's brought them up, and we keep going. And the most important piece is she's not in danger. I've got her with some good damage and some great health, and she's gonna live through this. And if your reviver lives, then typically you're gonna have a good chance of surviving. Rector would be good here, but Rector is so slow because she heals as each champion takes a turn. She heals them, and that it's such a slow animation that I didn't want to use Rector in this video. Whereas Mistress of Hymns, she's doing a fast attack animation, so her animation isn't slowing down the run. It's not just mechanic, it's actual animation. So you can see here, yeah, it's not, I mean, we're not breaking speed records, and we're not expecting to with this team. Our point is that it's going to be consistent. I've yet to fail with this. This is run number 11 now. Just wanted to make sure I was putting a video out there that didn't anger the gods and say I was creating something that didn't exist, blah 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 blah. It works. It's worked every time. Granted, 11 is not a huge sample size, but I wasn't really looking for that. I was just looking to make sure it's consistent enough. Say you wanted to use this to get past the Arbiter missions and you pulled Dagger. A good option here. As far as Dagger versus Warmaiden in this particular dungeon on this team, they're going to perform very similar. But where I feel like Dagger's got the advantage, if that shield closes, Dagger has an attack down. So when she lands at, which will be right there, if he closes that, and it looks like we're pretty good, we're on a good rotation, it's probably not going to happen. But if for whatever reason you get just a bad double weak hit. Now, there's the other thing, is she's got it's only 4%, but that turn meter reduction is basically a forgiveness piece for that, where you actually land 2 weak hits. And you notice how we were never in trouble. It never got close to closing because of that. And that's number one. But also that attack down, if for whatever reason we just had the worst RNG in the world and he actually did close his shield down, we're going to survive that first hit, and we can survive multiple hits. Whereas Warmaiden, she brings that defense down and is more consistent, but she doesn't have the turn meter manipulation. She doesn't have the attack down. So I would argue that Dagger's much better for this. Here's a 3-minute. Our best time was 2:20. Our worst time was about 4 minutes. And the 4-minute one, both waves, Dagger landed like 2 for 5. With an 80% chance because of the extra 5%. Oh, I don't have her on that. Sorry, the 75% chance to land. You should land average of 4 of 5, right? 3.5 of 5, 4 or 5. So landing 2 twice in a row was pretty crazy. And even then, still won the round. It didn't have a problem. So there you go. Dagger in the Fire Knight, which I feel was the important thing to do rather than to sneak in and do the bait and switch and put an Ice Golem. I cut the Ice Golem one out because honestly, that's a little bit more straightforward. She's defense down. She's got a attack down that you don't use on Ice Golem. Do not use her for attack down on Ice Golem because she won't hit the boss until the ads are done. So unless you're targeting, and that's going to spell trouble for you on a weaker kind of free-to-play team, you need that attack down. I use Padma for that, just for FYI, but I'm not going to show you the video just for time. So there you go, Fire Knight 20 on a, I would say, a pretty free-to-play friendly team featuring Dagger. All right, so just for giggles, we're going to take her into the arena. Now, this is a tough one because I don't have the speed on her to be able to go. If you were going to use her in the arena, which I don't suggest, you're going to need to make sure that she's fast enough to go before your damage dealer. And she's not fast enough for my normal team. Both my Ethos and my Foley are faster. So we're going to bring in Candrafon here, and we're going to go up against a slow comp resist team. Just to see. She probably won't even land them, and I think I just want to see kind of what damage she can do more than anything while she's hitting, because I really feel like she's not going to land her defenses. Well, she landed 3 of the 4 actually. That's not bad. We'll take it. I guess. We want to kill her if we can. There we go. I resisted the turn meter decrease. I mean, honestly, she got 3 for 4 and 1 resist, so I mean, not bad. God, that always makes me laugh. So I don't know. I guess if you're trying to build a champion that's going to help you everywhere, build her again, faster, survivable. Make sure she goes in front of your nuker. Because she's not 100% on that defense down, I would look for another champion that's more consistent. But if you don't have anyone else, you can bring Dagger into the arena as well. I mean, I say this all the time. I'll say it again. It's attribute, not champion. So it doesn't matter what champion's here. It doesn't matter her name or his name. It just matters the function. So you've got speed boost with revive, speed lead. You've got speed turn meter increase, turn meter decrease, right? With a speed up, she's got the attack up, right? Then you've got your debuff. Now, Madame Saras is so great because she's a double debuff. She cleanses and she puts decreased defense. In this case, we just have to find teams that we think we can get away with not having a cleanse. And then you've got your nuker. So what this champion is doesn't matter. What this champion does matter. So yeah, you can bring Dagger in here the same way you can bring in Tyrell, or any other defense, Warmaiden. The thing is that when you get to the better champions, they do more than just, and they're more survivable, they're stronger, they hit harder, they have revive as well as there's more attack, they cleanse as well as, so that's kind of the big deal there. My final thoughts on Dagger are this. I think she's a strong champion for the early to mid game. I believe the fact that she's a rare and has this toolkit makes her invaluable to those who happen to pull her. But I will say one thing, is that there is another champion that does a similar role, and that's Warmaiden. And when comparing the two, we really have to compare your account, how you happen to get one of these champions. Think of it this way. Dagger is a void champion. Even though she's rare, that still makes her a lot more difficult to pull than, say, a regular rare champion. Warmaiden is actually farmable in the Badlands. But there's a little caveat to that. It's not like you just farm her and get her. I myself probably spent about 2,000 energy to get her when I needed her for a fusion for rosin. So it's not like she's just an automatic. RNG does come into play no matter how. So here's my suggestion. If you're pulling voids as a low spend free to play young account that's looking for a defense down champion and you happen to pull Dagger, I would say look no further, build her out. She's going to do well for you until you pick an epic by the same kind of skill set, like a Tyrell, for example. Perfect example of someone who would replace Dagger wholeheartedly. But If you don't get Dagger from Void Shards, don't go buying Void Shards to get her. I think that's a waste of resources. Instead, turn your sights onto Warmaiden. Between the two, I believe that Dagger has a better upside to her. First of all, she's Void Affinity, which means you can use her in areas you can't use Warmaiden. Consider the Spider Dungeon and Ice Golem as two examples of that. Also, because she has a turn meter down, she does have a slight advantage in the Fire Knight. Even though she doesn't have the 100% chance to land her debuffs, it still showed in every test I've done that over the course of a run, it didn't make a whole lot of difference whether or not she landed all of those. It can mess up times on the bad RNG, right? We had Fire Knight run where she only landed 2 of 5. That's not great. But most of the time she's landing 4 of 5 or 5 of 5, and it's hardly even noticeable. If one champion doesn't have it, your whole team bullies that champion. It's a 20-second difference. So speed runs, you're not using either of those champions anyway, so I don't think you have to worry about Dagger not showing up. The advantage of her, she does do more damage. In every test I've done, I haven't looked at the multipliers or anyone that's posted them, but I will tell you that in my experience using the same ones in the Fight Night, she was doing slightly more damage and more consistently through all her skills. Also, that attack down, very helpful if you're fighting, if she's your only option in, say, Ice Golem, you're still playing with fire in my opinion, but at least if you get onto that Ice Golem boss, then she can put her attack down. Definitely in the Fire Knight, RNG can make it even with a lure to drop and close that shield. If you don't have a lure, you're using an Armiger, it might be even more because he's only doing a 30% once. So having her around with that turn meter decrease and the attack down in case the boss does take a shot, amazing. So when you have, I think they're both great champions, and I like Dagger better, but I think Warmaiden is every bit as strong for what you're really using her for, and that's the defense down. That consistency of debuff versus the consistency of run because of the rest of her toolkit. Either way, you're going to be happy, I think, and you can be really versatile. You can build them both out to be a little bit more tanky if you need them for early clan boss, or you can build them out for more damage if you're just trying to do some good consistent runs like we have her built in this video here. So at the end of the day, yeah, I fully recommend building her if you're free to play early to mid game. You're looking for that defense down champion. Having that attack down is an absolute bonus. And the only thing I will say about changing her is that rare books have become a commodity in this game. It's become ridiculous. It swung from crazy. You couldn't get away from rare books. I was getting rare books, 3, 4, 5 of them every clan boss instead of the books I needed. Well, that's fine for me. I still have 400. I think some of them even have thousands. But for a free-to-play low spend, there's this sudden drying up of rare book resource. So we need to fix that. I know it has nothing to do with this specific champion, but it does have to do with the overall consistency of this champion and every other rare in that early to mid game. I'm going to tell them to build, but they can't build if they can't book, and they can't book if they aren't available in the game. So please, Plarium, fix the book situation. As far as her kit, I'm okay with the 75%. You can mastery it to 80%. I'm okay with it. She's using her A2 over her A3 in most scenarios, though notably in the clan boss, she did it the other way around. I don't know why, but over a 50 turn or whatever turn run, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Just keep in mind that you may want to actually force her A2 on manual before hitting auto, just to make sure. And yeah, I mean, having the War Master proc off her A1, all that stuff, she's going to help you out early game of the clan boss. Obviously, her overall attack isn't big enough, her defense isn't strong enough, and her HP isn't high enough to be a nightmare champion. So you're going to want to replace her at some point. That's my thoughts on Dagger. What are your thoughts? Have you built her? Do you use her? Do you think she's useful for the early to mid game? Are you thinking I'm crazy and that Warmaiden's better? Please let me know in the comments down below. Also, I want to thank you for supporting me. Stay tuned. I will be doing a gem giveaway at the end of the month. Details to follow in the coming week. I will make out a video and I will be giving out gems for my YouTube followers as well as for those of you who go Twitch. If you're on the YouTube side, you do not have to be at the Twitch live stream when I will pull the rewards. But if you want the Twitch side of the rewards, you have to be there. So stay tuned for that coming in about a week to 2 weeks time before the end of the month. That's all I have for you. Thank you for joining me in this video. Thank you. Please be kind. Please be safe. Please enjoy the fact that hockey has begun again. And we'll see you in the next video.